Hello everybody, it's me George, and today I am doing a video in regards to the Hermetic Kabbalistic system and my experiences of that. So first and foremost, I just want to make the kind of, announcement that this isn't going to be a how-to video. I'm sorry to say, this isn't going to be a video of this is what it is and this is how you do it. This is more going to be a video regarding UPG, unique personal gnosis. It's not a video of information. In some respects it shall be, but it's more about my experiences of working through the sephirot, the spheres of the Kabbalistic tree of life, and my experiences of that and my thoughts and my insights and some, to a degree, elements of gnosis. I'm going to withhold as well a little bit on some of it. For the most part, I'm going to be completely and utterly opaque with you guys, including things that have been quite sensitive to me and things that have been quite touchy areas, shall we say, but I'm going to be completely and utterly honest with you guys in terms of how the Kabbalistic tree of life has changed me on such a deep and profound and beautiful level. Speaking of withholding as well, and I'm kind of digressing from this video, but the most recent video I done concerning making your craft your own, not being afraid to literally put yourself into your practice, and kind of alter envy as well. I wanted to say that I am not going to be doing an altar tour video. I had done at least 4 videos, 45 to an hour videos, 45 minutes to an hour video, and I went through each item, I explained, and it didn't feel right. It just did not feel right. And then when I had the videos ready to upload, but once I uploaded the video about altar envy, and I was like, I'm not sure about this, and loads of you guys commented underneath saying, I don't really feel comfortable sharing my altar. Yeah, I don't really like sharing I was like, do you know what? That is a sign. Take it. Take the fucking sign, George. So surprised to say, I won't be putting any further pictures of my altar from further notice. It might change. It might change in the future. Who knows? But for the moment, I'm keeping it completely and utterly quiet because it just doesn't feel right. It really, really doesn't feel right. But suffice to say, going back to the subject and matter at hand, I wanted to say that if a good thing for you guys to do, if you're confused about this, about me talking about the winter season and all these different kind of things, is look at my last video. Look at my last video concerning seasonal affective disorder. It's called A Traditional Witch's Guide to Winter. And I have to say, I open up a little bit about my seasonal affective disorder that I get quite bad. I'm a summer baby, but have a look. It will keep you up to date with what the fuck I'm actually talking about. I hope as well that this video makes sense, because sometimes not studying Hermetic Kabbalah or practicing it can be a bit like a foreign language and it can be quite difficult to understand. So for any of you wanting to delve a little bit deeper into that, I highly and thoroughly recommend Spirit Science videos on YouTube. Type in Spirit Science Kabbalah and they have a series of videos. There is definitely more to read and to look into, but in terms of simplicity, I think they really break that down. And just for me as a folk magician, that really, really helped me massively. I really thoroughly enjoyed those videos and I thought that was really beneficial and really helpful, actually. Yeah, really enjoyed them and they really helped me along my journey. So I want to kind of go into the fact that working Hermetic Kabbalah has literally taken the way I view the world, the way I see the world, and the way I interact with the world and just flipped it on its head. It really has, and it's impacted me on such a deep, profound level that has been impactful and it has been insightful. It's something that I feel has benefited me, not just as a witch, not just as a magician, but as a human being, or as a spiritual being living this human experience more precisely. which is exactly what it is. And it's funny because with each sephirah, with each sphere that I went up, that I ascended up upon the tree of life, upon the Kabbalistic tree of life, it would radiate out into my life as such. So it would literally show emanations of that sephirah in my life. So for instance, one week I was meditating upon Hesed, which is all about mercy, the compassion of God, all about the kindness between fellow humans, and between just to all living beings. And that radiated it. There were things that happened in the week that gave me an option as well, kind of said, do you want to do this out of the goodness of your heart? Do you not want to do this? And I was like, I'm going to do this, because not just because of Hesed and working with kindness and compassion and forgiveness and mercy, but actually just because I want to be a nice person, But in doing so, highlighted to me, it wasn't just in my meditational workings, it wasn't just calling upon each particular sephirah, each particular emanation of Godhead that happened. It vibrated out into my very existence, into my physical world, when actually, really and truly, I hadn't asked it to, but it just did. It just seeped out, and it completely, each emanation, it felt so intense. It felt so intense, to the point where I would have to take breaks, a couple of days break, and just do some mundane stuff, not even do meditation, not even do ritual, because of how intense it felt. And because of that, sometimes, and this is going to make it sound a little bit concerning, and I hope this doesn't first of all come across as ego-driven, because that is part of the Hermetic Kabbalistic system, to kind of give up a piece of that ego. In order to gain a part of oneself, one has to lose oneself. It's like the snake that eats its own tail. In order to give up in order to gain something, you have to give something up. Just like Odin hung himself on Yggdrasil, on the tree of life to gain knowledge of the runes. It's the same thing. And in order to gain something, we have to give something up. It's the element of sacrifice. Nothing is freely given in this world. In the material or the spiritual, all is a contract, all is a pact. It's reciprocal. It's all about that reciprocation, that aspect of it. But I found that I would sometimes have to take a couple of breaks, a couple of days away, because it felt so intense, to the point where sometimes I would feel quite disconnected from everyday people. And this sounds really, really bad. And I hope this doesn't sound really ego-driven or something like that. I really hope it doesn't come across like that. But when you literally meditate, or when you literally intone, and you become immersed with this energy, this divine energy, and it washes over you like this waterfall of purity, of beauty, of love, of compassion, of strength, all these different attributes, and it washes over you, over your entire being and your entire existence. And, you have these really interpersonal journeys, to then the next day come into work and someone's like, I can't believe she hasn't put this dishwasher on. Look at what she's done. This is bad. This is disgusting. And you're like stood there, and honestly, you're like, Betty, I have just been meditating on the strength of God. I couldn't give a fuck. Honestly, couldn't give a fuck about the dishwasher. Don't care. Don't give a fuck. And seriously, it did start to get a little bit like that, because it would highlight the things that were important in life and the things that, quite frankly, were fucking not. Do you know what I mean? Things that were just not important, that everyday people obsess over and, literally, they compel themselves over. Things that are just not relevant. Things that do just not mean shit, and it would be a really strange thing. Don't get me wrong, I didn't go into work and it was a shithole or anything like that. Cleaning doesn't matter. It wasn't like that, but it was just minor things pointed out that I'm like, actually, this doesn't mean anything. None of this means anything, and it's not relevant, it's not important, it's petty, it's boring. It's not productive. Do you know what I mean? And not just that, not just in terms of work. I mean, that was my old job, to be fair. I've got a new job now. But it would be the fact of, you know, just certain things that I noticed in my life about the world, about society. And, you know, there would be things that I would notice about people, even down to, you know, for instance, working on one sephirah, which means energy. It means pure energy, Keter. It's the furthest away from the tree of life, from Malkuth. Malkuth means earth, from the earth, what means kingdom. But it represents the planet Earth, and Malkuth is essentially the highest point that human beings can go to connect with divinity, and sometimes to not connect with divinity because it's so far away. From that, you have void. You have a void of nothingness, but everythingness. It's all and nothing. And I can hear myself. I sound like this crazy mystic. But when you meditate upon Keter, one of those things I found was that I realized, and I come to the realization that everything in this world is just energy. Even this, you know, even this physical matter, it's all made up of energy. Even water, even our bodies, even ourselves, even our souls, everything in this planet, everything in this universe is made up of energy, and that everything is a separate entity within itself, but part of a collective consciousness, part of a collective Godhead that emanates within all living beings and flows through everything. Fuck, that's intense. But it felt so intense. This whole journey felt so intense and so profound. And it would highlight things like body dysmorphia. You know, I have a tiny bit of body dysmorphia, I'll be honest. I always have suffered a little bit, not massively, but I definitely have suffered with body issues, you know. And going to the gym and seeing people, how they act and how they'll look at other people, and like, you know, the most masculine man and the most butchest man, and then they'll be like behind them, like mimicking them, and I'd just be like, this is shit. This is fucking shit. You know, what does it matter? You know, stop trying to be that person. Just be fucking you. Do you know what I mean? Like, just be you. Don't try to look a certain way. Just look like you. If you want to work out at the gym, do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I still work out at the gym. I love that. I love exercise. For me is a fundamental part of my happiness. It really is. But it's just, I saw people trying to make certain conversations that you knew they weren't interested in. They was just doing it in order to fit in. And this idea of conformity and people desperate to conform, and actually people comparing themselves, and then the whole system that essentially just exploits people's insecurities in order to make money out of them. And I just saw it all, and I was just like, this is bullshit. None of this fucking matters. None of this really matters. We are all connected by this flowing, beating heart of energy. We are all literally bodies of energy. We are all souls. We are spirits in a human experience, and we will ascend back to that infinite energy. But at the same time, we're still part of that infinite energy. And really, insecurities about, you know, certain anxieties, it doesn't matter. It does not fucking matter. Again, it's my personal experience, it's my personal journey, but for me, I was just like, it's just almost like it dropped the ball, and for me, at a certain point, I was like, I don't care about this trivial shit anymore. I'm sick and tired of feeling crap about my body. I'm sick and tired of feeling nervous around certain. I'm not doing it anymore, you know, I'm done. And I have to say, it's one of the most beneficial things that I have done for myself. Now, am I saying that anyone with anxiety or anyone with some form of body dysmorphia, if they'd done that, they'd be fine, they'd be fixed? No, I'm not saying that, because I think there's definitely different levels of body dysmorphia, you know, from minor to too major. And B, I think that, you know, people are so intricate and complex. I think what works for one person will not work for another person. And that is okay, because as human beings, we're not black and white. We are a whole spectrum of color. You know, and I guess just from a human perspective, just from a human experience, that for me, it just highlighted a lot of things for me. And I think that as a witch, as a mystic, and, you know, I think for me, connecting to Godhead, and not only that, connecting to my divine self, connecting to that fire, that inner fire, that witch fire, connecting to that felt so, so intense. And I definitely feel like I have a much better perception of Godhead. And I always felt in my life very connected to Godhead throughout different areas and aspects of my life. I've always felt very connected to fate, to the divine. But I think that working the Hermetic Kabbalah has made it so much more interpersonal, to the point where the energy, the universe, and just Godhead, in general, I feel like I've gained a much more insightful view of Godhead and what that means to me as a person, and what that means to me as a practitioner. And I definitely feel like it's something that has changed my life. I really do. I also feel like, as well, I would have said to you guys that I have Jewish blood. You know, by blood I am Jewish, but I didn't grow up with Judaism as a religion at all. You know, I just didn't grow up with it. But I always felt like I wanted to honor my Jewish ancestry in some way, in some level, and combine that in conjunction with my praxis. Now, I read Psalms in my praxis. You could say, okay, that is a part of Jewish, you know, Judaism within my praxis. You know, there are certain things I've done where I've worked with the Solomonic seals. You could say that as well. You know, you could definitely say that. But I think working the Hermetic Kabbalah, okay, it's not Kabbalah as in the ancient Jewish mysticism, but it derives from that. It is not an evolution, that would be a wrong word, but it is an emanation really of Jewish Kabbalah to what we now come to know as Kabbalah, Hermetic Kabbalah, the more occult aspect of it, that a lot of occultists work and utilize within their own practice. So yeah, definitely I would say that I think working that has in some way allowed me to connect with my Jewish side, but on my terms, not in a dogmatic Abrahamic, this is how it's going to go, this is what you're going to say way, because I fucking hate that shit. That is not me, do you know what I mean? Yes, I would say I'm dual faith still, definitely. I definitely work with saints, I work with Psalms, do you know what I mean? I've no problem with that at all. But first and foremost, you know, at the same time, I would 120% say it's on my terms. You know, it's done in the way that is meaningful to me and personal to me and works for me. And I definitely feel like with Hermetic Kabbalah, I've been able to acknowledge that Jewish aspect of my blood, of my ancestry and my ancestors, but do it in a way that works for me. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so I would 120% say that. It's funny going back to talking about being, you know, sort of realizing things don't matter as well, is that since lockdown, and I'm not sure I've actually said this, I've tried to do a couple of takes of videos, but I'm just going to go with it. Lockdown changed me on quite a profound level, and I think it changed everyone, but I think that lockdown had a really impactful way on anxiety for me. And I've never been a person that's really got the idea of people being so prohibited and crippled by anxiety, probably because it's something that I hadn't experienced before. But since lockdown, the things that happened to me during that time was quite frankly traumatic, and actually some of the most traumatic moments of my life. And I feel like because of that, I gained some anxiety. And a good friend also pointed out to me, sometimes it can be things that have happened prior to lockdown. If you have had some trauma in your life, which I have, it can unearth that hidden trauma and past trauma, which I think is so, so true. Definitely. And, you know, for me, I think since 2020, there have been some fucking traumatic things that have happened that have either unearthed that trauma or actually kind of caused a little bit more. But since working Hermetic Kabbalah, I feel like a large majority of that is gone. And it's the strangest thing. I'm human. I still get anxious. I still get anxiety. I'm a human being. You know, we all will. I'm not saying like, yippee, I'm cured, you know. But what I'm saying is a large majority of that is gone. And there are things now that I don't feel as prohibited by like I used to, you know, nowhere near. And I think that being completely and utterly opaque with you guys, you know, I was at a level where I had anxiety and it was quite crippling and it was quite prohibiting, but I feel like working over the winter period, over the winter season with the Hermetic Kabbalah is something that has just completely and utterly changed me for the positive, for the good, you know, something that has been incredible, something that has been deep and meaningful. And I'm going to share a moment with you guys that I had the winter solstice. And that happened on the morning. I wasn't outside, I was indoors, and I was just greeting the morning sun. I had taken the time off for work. And I had sat there and had done my morning ritual. And I had finished meditating on Hod and Netzach, the two Sephirot before the central Sephirot, which is Tiferet. And Tiferet, in the Hermetic Kabbalah, each Sephirot, almost each, is ruled by a planet, unlike that which you will see in Jewish Kabbalah. Within Hermetic Kabbalah, a lot of the Sephirot are ruled by planets, or correspond to planets, rather, my apologies. And I was sat there and I was greeting the morning sun. And I had, you know, I was sat there and I was feeling, I love the winter solstice. I think it's such a beautiful and special time. That element of renewal, of light returning to the world. It feels so hopeful. It feels so beautiful to me. And it makes me feel, it just feels so peaceful and so, just so lovely. Really, really lovely. And I was sat there and I started to think about the sun. And I started to think about all the times within my life the sun had impacted me on a really happy level, and just happy memories I have of being in the sun, and just all the amazing experiences and connections, which then made me think of people. It made me think of all the connections I've had in terms of love in my life, and all the times, every time I'd been loved, you know, been loved by people that have literally made me who I am, you know, family members that are no longer with me, you know, my current relationship, you know, even previous relationships, you know, and just friendships, you know, and just family, and all these moments, all these times I had ever been loved, and just that element of pure human compassion. And just actually sometimes non-human, you know, pets and animals that I'd had and loved along the way, and just beautiful animals that have been in my life, and my mom, my dad, my stepdad, you know, all these things, and all this love came flooding through me like this just stream of emotion, and my little beating heart couldn't take any more, and I just went, ugh, and I literally just cried. But it wasn't a sad cry, it was tears of pure happiness. And I just felt this connection that everything in this world, everything is just connected on such an intricate and beautiful level, and that we are literally just all connected by this web of beating energy, and that love, you know, is one of the most beautiful things we will ever feel in our lives. And you can have all this money, you can have all these clothes, you can have all these things that don't really mean anything, but when you have love, that shit, you know, and you experience that, that is so, that's what matters. You know, that is what matters. That is really what matters, you know, feeling that love and feeling that energy of one person to another, how much they love you and how much you love them, and what they wouldn't do for you and what you wouldn't do for them. And whether that be non-human, you know, if that's within the spirit world and you work with spirits, you have that connection, that love, that admiration for each other, that companionship, that familiarity. And it just was, it was so much that it was almost like so beautiful. And Tiferet means beauty. It can mean beauty, it means truth, but it is the center that connects everything together, and it's about connectedness. I hadn't at that point started to work with Tiferet, but Tiferet had started to work with me. Non-voluntary, but it just came, and it's like, okay, so I've ascended to that clearly, but I have never felt anything like that in my life. And it was so, so beautiful. And I really feel like, as a magician, as a witch, I would thoroughly recommend other witches or magicians to work with the Hermetic Kabbalistic system. I really would, because I think that it gives a person a more clearer aspect of oneself. It gives a person a more clearer aspect of Godhead, of the divine. And I think that as witches, we in some ways are also mystics. And the role of the mystic and the role of the witch weave themselves intricately together. You know, they become one. In some senses, we are also spirit workers. We also work with herbs. You know, we are also shapeshifters. We are also weavers of weird. You know, we also, there's so many things that a witch is, but I definitely think one of the roles of the witch is the priestly mysteries, as it's known in the clan of Tubal Cain. You know, the aspect of the mystic, the aspect of the godly mysteries. You know, and again, I'm not saying that I'm not part of the clan of Tubal Cain, I'm just using that as a reference. But I think it's a good reference, you know, the aspect of the mystic and the role of the mystic within the witch and within witchdom, I think is something that is definitely so, so important. I would thoroughly recommend it. Does this mean now that I'm like some mad Kabbalist? No, it doesn't. I'm a witch, I'm a traditional witch, and I'm a folk magician, and I'm not going to be any different. But I think to delve into the certain mysteries or the certain aspects, or rather than influences that influence the craft, that influence the nameless art, is a really, really good thing for a person to do, because we get to see them at their rawest form. And I think by seeing them, by embracing them in their rawest form, we are then able to go back to our praxis and realize and appreciate the impact and the influence and quite frankly the power and the energy that those things bring into it. And I really do think that. But from start to finish, I have to say, through this winter period, and we're past the spring equinox now, has been amazing. Has been so, so amazing. There is 1,000 more things that I could say. There's so many things I could say. There's so many things I could describe to you. And by gods, I hope I make sense in this video, because I might just sound completely crazy. I might sound mental, but I just wanted to explain to you all and just kind of, not even explain, but morely just kind of give you a little insight into what happened, into the way in which it's changed me just as a human being. You know, I would recommend it for everyone, but I would say that I personally, it couldn't be a thing I could do every day, because I feel like it would drive me mad. I honestly do feel like that. It would send me mad because of how intense it was, how intense the Sephiroth are, how powerful they are, but how incredible the emanations of Godhead were, which was why I had to take breaks, because it felt too intense, it felt too powerful for me. I think if I'd done that all the time, I would go mad. I really do. I really do think that, because I think that it's not a thing that you take lightly, and even when meditating, sometimes I would be scared. I would be like, oh my God, like we're on to the next Sephiroth, and like literally doing it, like it would feel so intense meditating, sometimes to the point where my body would move and would flow freely, and I didn't even mean it to, and my heart would pound, and it felt so intense for me, on all scales, on all levels. And I think it's just made me appreciate life more. I do, just in general as a human being, but as an occultist, I definitely feel like as well, I've gained a new language, because I think prior to studying the Hermetic Kabbalah and the Kabbalistic system of magic, that I would quite often struggle with some books when they would recommend to something as like darts, and I would be like, well, what's darts? And then now I can read it and be like, oh, darts or darts, it's gateway, it's the gateway of the tree of life. Or someone would refer to something in the form of binar, and hokmah, and I would be like, binar and hokmah, oh, okay, understanding and wisdom, that's what that means. Like, and it feels a little bit like I've unlocked a bit of a secret language, if that makes sense. I wouldn't say as well that the Hermetic Kabbalah is the only way for a person to commune and connect to Godhead. That's simply not true. I wouldn't say that it's the best way as well. I would just say, for me as an individual and as a practitioner, it's something that has impacted me, and I am so glad that I have done it. I would personally recommend it to every occultist, I really would. But I don't think every occultist is going to be comfortable with doing that, or they might be a bit like, some people aren't, it's not their thing, it's not their path, and that's okay. So I wouldn't say that Hermetic Kabbalah is the be-all and end-all of understanding Godhead and spiritual entities when it comes to occultism. I wouldn't say that, but I would definitely say that it is something that I think is important within occultism, and actually it has influenced so many different occult traditions over the years, to the point where you have, like I said, it has felt like I've unlocked a secret language in a way, because it has felt like there were things and set traditions I can now look at and be like, that's Kabbalistic. I can see the Kabbalistic influence there. That's this, that's that. Oh, look, that's there. And there were things where I would read and I would get my books out and I'd be like, I've heard of this before. And I'd be like, oh my God. And I would go to that sort of a book of that particular tradition and I'd be like, bam, Martha, there it is. But yeah, I really hope I've made sense in this video, and it's a pure ramble. It's a pure ramble, by the way, but it is something that I've been really excited to share with you guys. As I said, I haven't shared everything with you guys, and I'm not going to share everything, but I honestly feel like, going into that cave at winter time, retreating and going with the seasons and doing something that is so intimate over the winter, over the darkness, over the grueling, hard, cold months, and then coming out of that cave into the light, by the equinox, by the spring equinox, and just going with the land, and rather than, oh, new year, new me, here's what you have to do. You have to do this, you have to do that, no, you go with the seasons. It's a lot more easier. For me, personally, I've not done that. I've gone with the seasons. Spring, I can do all this, yay, new year, new me kind of thing at spring, but not in fucking January when I'm up to my tits in advent calendar chocolate. Like, no, absolutely not. But not just that, in the sense of embracing the darkness, going that and using that, working with that as an opportunity to do such intimate work in such as Hermetic Kabbalah, and work in that and doing that in a way that is not only transformative to myself as a human, but as a witch, as an occultist, gaining more Gnosis, gaining more insight to the spirit world, gaining more insight to Godhead, and it has. It's been truly powerful and truly transformative, and it's definitely been something that has opened me up a lot more, and made me appreciate so many things on such a beautiful level. So yeah, I just wanted to do this video. I hope some people can understand me. I hope a lot of people won't feel like, that's it, he's gone, he's lost it, he's gone mad. But yeah, that's basically some experiences I've had with Kabbalah and my experiences. And yeah, I hope this video helps. There's probably, you know, I'm not going to do any more about this, probably not, because yeah, a lot of my videos are traditional witchcraft based, are folk magic based, and they will remain as such. But I definitely feel like this is important to talk about for me, also just as a log, so that I can also look back and just see and be like, oh my God, that was so intense. Because it is intense, you know. But I would recommend it. I would recommend it to a lot of people, and I think the world would actually be a better place if everyone done it. I do. And connected with these emanations of Godhead and became part of them, and realised that actually we're just part of this collective beating energy of consciousness of fate. We are all connected by these webs of weird. Yeah. I'm gonna go because you'll probably think that I've lost the plot, but I hope you guys are having a lovely spring. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you so much for allowing me to share these experiences with you guys. So over and out. Peace.